Welcome to Beacon of Speech. I'm Fred Hunt. That's Ted Coley. Hey, Ted Coley, how you doing today?
Awesome. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing spec-frickin-tacular. What is Beacon of Speech? I don't know, Ted. What's Beacon of Speech today? Oh, are we going to talk about Trump all day long like CNN and every other station in the whole world?
No.
No, I am done talking about Donald Trump. Every time I say Donald Trump's name today, I want you to smack me in the head. Mueller, Trump, Mueller, Amoroso. Oh my God. Or Amorosa, whatever her name is. That stuff drives me so crazy now. Okay? Let me tell you a fun story. This is Beacon of Speech. We can talk about whatever we want today. I'm going to go off the board something that is a feel-good story that will make you feel good, because usually on Beacon of Speech, I make Ted Coley feel bad.
So we're turning over a new leaf.
No, we're going to make him feel bad in about 10 minutes. In Minnesota, there's a guy who is suicidal. He's on the bridge. He climbed over the fence. He is on the far side of the fence. He is looking under at another highway. He's looking down. He says, I am going to kill myself. Traffic slows down. Nobody helps him. They're like, see ya. Right? This is in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Right?
So he would be jumping from one bridge to another?
He's jumping from the overpass onto the highway below.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
It's kind of like a 480 and 77, right? When he jumps, he's either going to land on a car or he's going to land on concrete. Either way, he's screwed, right? So, if you saw that, you're driving through Cleveland, you're in your work vehicle. Don't tell people where you work, but if you're in your work vehicle and you see the guy, he's going to jump. What do you do, Ted Coley?
I floor it so I can get out of his way, because I know that if he lands on my vehicle, somehow it'll be my fault.
Well, he's on the bridge. He's ready to jump. He's on the opposite side of the fence.
Didn't you see that guy?
Did you see the guy coming? There's a guy with 6 foot tall, 200 pounds. You let him hit your work vehicle. So he's on the far side. Traffic is slowing down, but they're not stopping to help him, right? Police aren't there yet. Guy in a Coors delivery truck pulls up, stops. They start filming it. 2 guys delivering Coors. This is for real. This is not commercial, right? I saw it on the Daily Mail. Pull up. Hey, guy, what you doing? Guy's like,
want a beer?
Oh, that's what they did. He goes, I'm going to kill myself. I don't have anything to live for.
Let's have a beer and talk about this.
That's what they did.
No.
They said, listen. We got free Coors in the back. If you
see that, maybe I should be a beer truck driver.
That's what I'm saying, because they go, hey, we have Coors Light, or I'm sorry, we have Coors, and he's looking back. He's like, I can have a Coors, right? And they're like, yeah, dude.
Did he really say that?
Yeah, he's like, guy. They're like,
maybe he just really wanted a beer.
So he's ready to kill himself, and he's talking to the beer guys, and the beer guys are like, we were going to give him the beer. But one way or the other, we were stalling until the cops got there. As soon as we approached, the guy's on the opposite side of the fence. He jumps, right? And he goes, we're not professionals. We're beer truck drivers. So all we're doing is, literally, all we're doing is stalling. And the guy's like, you'll give me a beer, a free beer, right? And the guy's like, yeah, but we don't want you to jump. Come on back. You can have, I'm not lying. I got a whole truck full of Coors. Whatever type of Coors you like, you can have some Coors, right? And the guy is like, I don't know. I really wanted to kill myself today. But if you're going to give me some free beer, that's kind of a good deal, right? And so, no, come on over. Don't kill yourself, right? And so I did not see whether he left the fence before or after the cops came. But he left. He climbed back over and came back to the Coors truck. And they said the police came and took him for psychiatric evaluation. They didn't use a stun gun. They didn't beat him. They just said, is this the guy who was going to jump? And the Coors guys are like, oh, yeah, but he's having a beer right now. and go ahead. You see what I'm saying?
Did the cops have a beer, too?
I did not read that part of the story. The whole point of the story is it was a feel-good story because...
That is good. Those beer truck guys are good guys.
Well, but that's the whole thing. I think back to your work. What would have happened? Now, you don't have beer, right? But say you had some goodies in the back of your vehicle, and you stopped and you say, hey, don't kill yourself. I have free goodies in the back. Your boss will probably say, you're fired because you violated protocol by not You see what I'm saying? I thought it was a feel-good story because the guys thought on their feet, and at the end of the day, they're like, we gave him a beer. I'll give you the $4 that the beer cost. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? They saved the guy's life that day in Minnesota.
That is a really good story. I like that.
And the thing is that nowadays, people don't act like that because they're worried about the ramifications of what you do.
Right.
You're like, what's my boss? I better call in and see if my boss will let me offer a free beer to that suicidal guy. Or
let me look at the encyclopedia. Let me look at the encyclopedia of rules for every breath you take.
There's no rule in here. What if I come across a suicidal guy? Yeah. And again, those guys
and then the same people who make up all these rules tell you to think outside the box.
Right.
And then, when you do think outside the box, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Are you going rogue?
Yeah. Well, why would you stop? You saw the guy. You knew the cops were coming. Well, what would have happened if he would have jumped before the cops got here? That's not your concern. Your concern is you were driving a work vehicle. You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
Even heroes get hassled nowadays. Yeah. And it's like, I read so many stories about somebody's going to rob a store. The clerk stops them, and then they get fired because they're like, policy is you don't stop the robber.
Yeah.
You see, you've read those stories. But the suicidal guy, I had never seen that before. Beer truck, and again, it was Coors truck, right? So thanks to Coors didn't fire the guys, right? But nowadays, everybody's afraid of their own channel. Nobody wants to get fired. Yeah. We have to ask permission for everything. And then you have bosses who live in $300,000 houses who are like, well, let me check with my boss before you make a decision. And by the time you get permission,
the guy's splattered on the ground.
The guy's already splattered on the ground. and you're like, remember that suicidal guy? Just forget about that. That guy jumped about an hour ago. I'm already to my third delivery pass. Right? But I was glad that the guys were on corporate time and they saved a life. They said, we're going to take 5 minutes to save this guy's life. I think it's great. Because you don't hear enough stories like that anymore. You don't hear think on your feet stories. And when cops do save people's lives, they're like, oh, well, they pulled me over and, they were mean to me when they took my license. You see what I'm saying? It's like
now, there were 2 guys in the beer truck?
Yeah, because what happened is, I guess the one guy was driving, and then you had the second guy. Don't ask me why they had 2 guys on a beer truck, okay? But the second delivery driver took the video. He took out his phone. He's taking the video. So he's videotaping his friend like I would videotape you. And in the background, you can see the guy on the outside of the fence. I'm going to kill myself. And they're like, yeah, guy, don't kill yourself. Wouldn't you rather have a beer? Right? And so they videotaped it, probably so they could show their boss that they weren't goofing off giving away beers to random people. Yeah. And you could clear...
How come there's 1 beer missing?
I took an inventory! Damn it! You drank that beer!
Don't you know people check these things?
Yeah. Oh, how many times did you... where I used to work and you work now, how many times did you take inventory? Over and over and every single day. Inventory. I remember when I was at Taco Bell. And I was a young man and they had some... contest on the cups, right? And on the paper cups, there would be prize tickets. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So you peel it off and you can win a prize.
Yeah, I remember those.
Well, what would happen is bad employees at Taco Bell, like myself and others, right? They would take the cups and they would peel the stickers and be like, oh, I won a taco. I'm going to redeem it at the next Taco Bell, over, right? So I remember my boss coming in and screaming, right? I took inventory and somebody stole 8 cups. And you're like, 8 cups, huh? And you're thinking in your head, I thought I stole like 20, right? And they're paper cups, right? And you're like, I thought I sold 20. Oh, crap. Oh, he's counting, right? He'd be like, do you know that those cups cost... And at this point, he's not even thinking of the prize value, right? He's like, do you know how much those cups cost per sleeve? I'm like, I don't know, 78 cents. Yeah, well, so you do know. That's 4 cents a cup. And I'm like, oh, you're killing me now. Because at least I got a free taco salad for $2.99, so technically I didn't steal 78 cents from you. I stole $2.99. You see what I'm getting at? But so inventory. You know, somebody from Taco Bell. You know, the one time we're watching, right? They're like, oh, Fred Hunt won a taco salad back in 1988, and he redeemed another Taco Bell.
You think the statute of limitations?
Oh no! They're going to be $2.99 times 30 years of interest.
The statute of limitations.
Yeah. What? So anyhow, that's what I want to talk about today. I wanted to talk about Minnesota as a feel-good story, right?
That's good. I like that.
Now it's time to feel bad. Are you ready to feel bad?
The good times are over.
Good times are over. We're done. We're done being nice.
But that is a nice story, and I just want to say kudos to
Coors.
Yeah.
If you had Coors in the refrigerator, we'd drink a Coors to the guys in Minnesota. Do you know who the greatest soccer player in the world is?
Is it Ronaldo?
I think
you know why I know that.
Because I told you.
Yeah. That's the only.
He's one of two. I think Messi is the greatest soccer player. Some people would say it's Ronaldo. Okay. Today, on Making a Speech, I was writing about Ronaldo. Okay. Ronaldo started his new team. He was on a Spanish league team, and now he's playing in Italy. Okay? Why is that a big deal, Ted Coley?
Now he's playing in Italy. Why is that a big deal?
Yeah, why is that a big deal?
What, that he's playing in Italy?
Yeah, why is it a big deal? He went from a team in Spain to a team in Italy.
I don't know.
It is a big deal because it would be like LeBron leaving the NBA to go to the Chinese basketball league. You see what I'm saying?
That would be fine.
The Spanish soccer league is much better than the Italian soccer league. Now, Italians would send me hate mail and be like, "Oh no, you hate the Italian." No, the Italian league was gutted by corruption a few years ago, and it's not what it used to be. Okay, but the best team in the Italian league, Juventus, signed Ronaldo. Okay. So I watched the highlights from his first game. And we're going to stop talking about Ronaldo because you don't care. Okay? But I'm looking at his Juventus shirt. Okay? And it says Juventus in the corner. And it says Jeep across the front because Jeep is their sponsor. Now you're familiar with Jeep, right?
Mm-hmm.
Without getting into the nitty-gritty of it, Juventus had a tiny little patch in the corner because they won whatever the tournament's called in the Italian league, and it was basically a tiny Italian flag, and it was like a pin, right? And all I could think of is that would not go over in America, and it would be like winning the AFC in the NFL. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So would American players be happy with a little flag pin on their shoulders?
No.
For winning the AFC. No. Juventus won Serie A, which is the best league in Italy. So for that, they get an Italian flag right here, right in the front of their chest, right? If the winners of the Super Bowl were mandated to wear American flags on their jerseys for winning the American Super Bowl, would the players be happy?
No.
No. And Juventus is also in the Champions League because they're so good, and they have a little Champions League patch on their shoulder, and because the Champions League is worried about racism, they have a tiny little patch that says respect, so you learn about racism. What if the NFL players, instead of kneeling, they wore a tiny little patch that said respect? Do you think the NFL players would be like, oh, we're not kneeling anymore because we have this tiny little patch that says respect on our arms? Will that satisfy the NFL players?
No.
No. So when we go back to all the kneeling that's going on in sports, okay, everything is about dollars and cents, okay? Juventus bought the best player in the world, second best player in the world, okay? As soon as they bought him, they sold $50 million worth of jerseys. They went out and they almost made half their money back within a week. Okay? Now, Ronaldo, okay, Ronaldo does not give a rat's ass about the Italians, the Spanish, the English, nobody. Okay? Who does Ronaldo care about? You don't know Ronaldo at all. Who does Ronaldo care about if he's the second best soccer player in the world?
Ronaldo.
Ronaldo. When Ronaldo looks in the mirror, he's like, you know who I love? I love Ronaldo. Right? And even the European press makes jokes that he has beautiful models, and he says he doesn't notice the beautiful models that he dates because the only person he sees in the mirror is Ronaldo. Right? So he's not unlike an American athlete. Now, the Colin Kaepernicks of the world are like, well, we want to raise social awareness. Okay? The Ronaldos of the world are like, did my check clear? Did my check clear? Did that money go into my account? And did it all transfer into liras or euros or whatever the hell? Now, you see what I'm getting at, right? In America, you could say, well, that's good that people are worried about social injustice, right? But you can turn around and say, well, maybe the Europeans are more aware of social injustice because they put patches on. You see what I'm saying? What is the right answer? Now, the reason I bring up what is the right answer is because in Europe, in soccer, and in America, in the NFL, they don't care about social injustice, okay? They care about looking like they care about social injustice. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And I don't believe that Colin Kaepernick really...
I think there's a lot of that going on here, too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think that the players that kneel in America, right, I think that they care about social injustice to an extent, but at the end of the day, they worried, like Ronaldo, did that check clear in my account? You see what I'm saying? Now, they'll be like, well, I will kneel, and if they kick me out of the league, that's fine. Okay, you're out of the league. I'm suing the league! They can't kick me out for that. That's bullcrap. I will sue them. I will make $100 million by suing. You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
If Colin Kaepernick was really a social justice warrior, he would not say, I knelt. I don't care if they kick me out of the league, and then when they kick him out of the league, he's like, I'm suing! You can't kick me out of the league!
So, he is currently not signed.
He is currently not signed.
And how long what's it been, a couple of years since he...
It's been over a year now. But it came out this year that, again, Colin Kaepernick opted out of his contract. He was not cut. He opted out of his $11 million contract.
And that was with San Francisco?
With San Francisco. This week it came out that John Elway...
He was making $11 million a year?
$11 million, $12 million, something like that.
Yeah.
John Elway contacted San Francisco and said, listen, we want to sign Colin Kaepernick. Don't cut him. We'll trade him. We'll give you a 5th-round draft pick, and then we'll trade him. San Francisco's like, yeah. And they're like, but we don't want to pay him $11 million. This came out this week. And they said, what do you want to pay him? And they're like, $7 million, and then you pay him $4 million to get rid of him. Right? And they said, well, why would we pay $4 million when we could just cut him and pay... Nothing. And Denver's like, well, you don't want the bad PR.
Well, and I should probably know this, why would Denver not want them to cut him? What would be their motivation for not wanting San Francisco to cut him?
Because when this happened, this was very early. This was before they even cut him. Their motivation was...
Whose motivation?
Denver. Denver thought that there was a line of other teams waiting to pay him $8, $9, $10 million. They wanted to pay him $7 million, but have control. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So they said, we'll pay him $7 million, and San Francisco's like, why would we do that? And they said, how about this? We'll let you talk to Colin, okay? So they talked to Colin Kaepernick's agent, and John Elway got on the phone and said, listen, and this was reported by ESPN this week, said, we want to trade for you as long as you take a pay cut down to $7 million, and then you have to negotiate with the 49. And Colin Kaepernick said, I am one of the best quarterbacks in the whole NFL. I deny the trade. I will not accept the trade to Denver. I will not take a pay cut. He went back to San Francisco and said, I will not take one penny less than $11 million. You cut me. And they said, okay, you're cut. You see what I'm saying? Thinking that his market was he was going to get $15 million from a team when teams like...
So they did cut him?
Yes.
And San Francisco's off the hook then for... They don't have to pay him anything?
Yeah, they were off the hook.
So...
Except for there's salary cap ramifications. We don't want to dwell on that.
But they do not have to pay him. How much time did he have left on his contract?
Like 3 years, 2 years.
Of making about $11 million a year.
Yeah.
And then San Francisco was able to cut him and doesn't owe him any of that money?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
so he gets nothing.
Right.
So he's making nothing right now.
Nothing. Zero. That's why he's suing the league for collusion. Because and here's the problem. Colin Kaepernick thought he was going to get caught, and then
would you be interested in him if you owned a team?
If I owned a team?
Yeah.
No. But not for the reason you think. I did an article about this a couple months ago on
because I was going to ask you. Let's put aside all this kneeling,
right,
and just act like that never even happened.
Right.
Would you be interested in him?
Not for his price tag. Pretend like you're a general manager, right? Colin Kaepernick was making $11-12 million a year on a $100 million contract, right? He wanted top 10 money. He wanted $15-20 million a year. He thought he had an off year, and if he was on a better team, he would have made better money. Teams were like, you suck. We want to pay you like between $3 and $7 million. And he goes, you insult me by throwing Remember, again, would you like to be insulted with $3 million? I know you want 11.
All day long.
Yeah. So now all these teams are like, we're not going to pay a backup all that money, and he's kneeling. You see what I'm saying? So everything in sports, going back to Ronaldo, is all about dollars and cents. Colin Kaepernick is claiming collusion when in fact they did not want to pay all the general managers in the league, and it's just like any business. They thought that they could get him for cheap, and he thought he should be paid one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the league. You see what I'm saying? And the reason I bring up Colin Kaepernick is because when we were young, sports was fun. Do you remember talking about being a GM or money or anything when you rooted for sports when you were a kid, when you were a teenager?
No.
Right? Now, when you talk, and we're going to start with international soccer and work our back to the NFL, okay? But everything has to do with business deals, what what shoe company you're working for, transfer fees. In the case of Ronaldo, he left the country to get more money, and he was hiding money in Spain. He was convicted in a Spanish court, and they're like, you owe us $20 million in taxes. He goes, I'll leave the country. And Spain's like, well, you got a contract, here in Spain. He's like, no, I'll go somewhere else. So even with Ronaldo, there were shady dealings. You see what I'm saying? So it's not just the NFL. It's not just international soccer. It's almost every sport where it seems like a lot of the joy has been sucked out of it by dollars.
Yeah.
Now, a couple of weeks ago, me and you were talking about legalized sports gambling, right? You remember that.
And I think the reason that happened is because over the years, it's become so much more lucrative.
Oh, yeah.
There's been so much more money that's gone into it.
Right.
Years ago, obviously there was a lot of money, but not to the degree that there is now.
Right.
Like football, 30, 40 years ago, football wasn't anywhere near like it is now, money-wise.
No, not at all.
And that's why that happened, because when there wasn't that much money in it, that doesn't happen.
Right. But it seems like every story comes down now to money.
Yeah.
And when Colin Kaepernick said, I don't care if they cut me, I am going to kneel for social injustice, and he turns around and sues the league, well, then it is about money. And the reason I brought up Colin Kaepernick is because the
Elway?
I kept wanting to say John Wayne.
John
Elway.
John Webb.
John Wayne would not have put up with Colin Kaepernick either. But, I read the comments section, and let's just say you make $50,000 at work. And I'm not going to give you your real salary, but say $50,000. Your boss comes up to you and says, you know what, Ted? You are not one of the best drivers in Northeast Ohio. As a matter of fact, I think you cause a lot of trouble here, and you stir the other drivers with insubordination. Okay? So I'm either going to fire you, or you could take a pay cut down to $35,000. Right? And knowing you would probably say, you know what, this sucks, but I got to take that pay cut because I can't be making zero. Right?
Yeah.
You would not go to your boss and say, I dare you to cut me. I might do that, but you won't do that. I dare you to cut me, and it's not about money at all. It's about the principle that you're not going to push me around and take my money.
Yeah.
Right? Now, people on the internet all say, well, I wouldn't take $7 million. Oh, you wouldn't take $7 million instead of 11. That's funny. That's rich. Because we're talking real world money, and athletes make monopoly money. You see what I'm saying? 7, 11, it really doesn't matter. It matters because I only get 2 houses instead of 4. and the quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks, he's got 2 more houses. And you see what I'm getting at? You're at a new level of structure.
Yeah, it's funny how once you reach another level, you completely forget about the level you came from.
Yeah.
It's like it doesn't even exist anymore.
So
it's like they don't realize they could go back to making nothing.
Right. And so that's why a lot of people, this week, I'm going to stick up for John Elway. A lot of people attacked John Elway and said when he offered Colin Kaepernick $7 million, that was a slap in the face. And I'm like, oh my God. This is
the
not
definition
like
of cutting off your nose to spite your face.
Yeah. This is not the real world that we're in anymore. It's like playtime theater.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? It's like, there's social injustice, so we're going to put a patch on your sleeve. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's not.
The rich don't work in the same headspace as me and you. And when I read that story about John Elway, and then instead of attacking Colin Kaepernick, 3/4 of people were attacking John Elway. They're like, well, you wouldn't take a pay cut. I'm like, I wouldn't take a pay cut from 11 to 7? You gotta be kidding. Because I would take that pay cut all day long. Now, Colin Kaepernick might say, I don't love football. I want every red cent that I can get. I'm not taking a pay cut for something I don't love. I'll listen to that, right? Because you'd be like, I ain't taking 1 cent. I'm not taking a 1 cent pay cut from $50,000 to $35,000 because I effing hate this job, and I'll see you in hell. You see what I'm getting at? And then, you go and get a $35,000 job somewhere else, and you're like, you know what, that other place sucked. You see what I'm getting at? And I could not believe the people who were attacking John Elway. I'm like, John Elway used to be a quarterback. He knows. Do you remember this story? And this is the reason I bring this up, okay? Do you remember the John Elway story when he came into the league?
Yeah, he was, what was he drafted by, Baltimore?
Yeah. John Elway he was drafted by Baltimore, and he said, you know what? I'm not going to play for Baltimore. They're a bunch of idiots. The Ursays are morons that walk the earth to squeeze every penny out of...
Was he the first person drafted?
Yeah, he was the first person drafted.
He was the number 1
yeah.
overall pick.
Right.
In, 83, I think.
83, 84, something in there. I think it's 83, but somewhere in there. And he says, I will not play for your team. The Ursays are morons. Okay? Now, time has proven John Elway right. John Elway was right. The Ursays were morons. Okay? Because the elder Ursay who moved them to Indianapolis was a moron. And then the younger Ursay He just got convicted for all kinds of illegal stuff. Google Jim Irsay and hooker problems, and a whole slew of things will come up. Okay, and you know about that. Okay, so John Elway was ahead of the curve, but John Elway did not turn around and, to my knowledge, to the NFL. He says, "I will sit here and wait for you to trade me." You see what I'm getting at? And back in the day, they said, "Well, God damn it, we think John's being serious. We better trade him to
Denver.
Denver." So they traded him to Denver.
Do you know what they got for that?
I honestly
You know
don't
what
remember.
Baltimore got from it?
I wish I had it in front of me, because I should have wrote it down. So John Elway knows both sides of the coin. And so when John Elway went to Colin Kaepernick's people and said, "Listen, we'll give you $7 million, but that's all you're getting," Colin Kaepernick,
And I
Go ahead.
believe that John Elway, I think when he was 18, was also drafted by the New York
yes, he was.
Yankees.
He was drafted by the Yankees for baseball, and that was another leverage point. He said, "Well, guess what, Baltimore? If I sit here for a year, at the end of the day, maybe I'll go play baseball. I got drafted, so you guys can suck eggs, or you can trade me." You see what I'm saying? So John Elway had seen both sides of the coin, and the reason that it came out this week is John Elway had to give a deposition to the league. The league is being sued by Colin Kaepernick, saying that he was blackballed when he was cut. And again, over and over, no matter what business you're in, management thinks you're worth A, the employee thinks they're worth B, and often they don't match. And often management wants to underpay the employee. Would you say that's fair?
Mm-hmm.
In all walks of life, not just in the NFL. So for some reason, we know this horrible story, and John Elway leaked it out, and I'm talking about Ronaldo overseas, but it seems like all the biggest athletes in the world, it's all about big money dealing, screwing that guy, I'm screwing the government of Spain, right? I'm gonna sue the NFL for collusion, all this other fun stuff. And you're like, well, you know what? I just want to watch football. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to hear about kneeling. I don't want to hear about your contract. I don't want to hear about your holdout. You are playing with monopoly money, and me and you, we're not playing with monopoly money. Would you say that's fair?
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's just say hypothetically that Beacon of Speech becomes popular, right? Somebody wants to buy out Beacon of Speech. They said, "We're going to give you $100,000 for the name, and then we control your destiny." Okay, we control Fred and Ted's destiny. We own the name, and we own you. Okay? Now, $100,000. I'm going to walk up to Ted and say, "Listen, Ted, we have an offer on the table for $100,000. Okay? Are you interested in that 100? Not yes or no. Just are you interested in listening to what they have to say?"
Yeah.
Yes. So whether it's Cleveland.com, okay? Now, what we would probably do is say, "Listen, we're going to die poor, and we're going to say whatever we want, and we're going to be like, oh, you know what? $100,000 is a lot of money. I don't care. I don't care if they say that Fred's not allowed to talk anymore. He's going to be on the video with a muzzle, and you're just going to nod, right? We're taking that money, right? And screw that, okay? Then we would be on the air, and then that would be like me going,
So you're saying they would be paying $100,000 to shut you up?
yeah. Oh, well, they would own us, and they would keep paying us, but they'd be like, say they would pay 50 grand. We're going to pay you 50 grand, but you're not allowed to talk about sports anymore, and you're not allowed to talk about Trump, and what we want you to talk about is just take calls and talk about libertarianism, right? And then I get on the air, and I'm like, you know what? You know who sucks? Donald Trump! Suck it! I dare you to fire me! I'll see you in hell! I don't want your stinking money! And then they fire me, and then I'm like, I'm suing you! You see what I'm getting at? Everything is about the money in sports, and you're like, well, those guys only have a couple of years. And it's like, well, but that's still, if you invest your $7 million a year, you should, well, but I want my lifestyle. I want 4 houses, and I want to bang models, and I want to have 4 Lamborghinis, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember reading the story of Allen Iverson, who had 8 cars with no driver's license, right? Because it was a status symbol because somebody else on the team had 5, so he wanted 8, right? And that's why all this sports stuff that's been bothering me, it has just been like eating away at the joy of sports.
Mm-hmm.
You should be talking about. I remember when I was a kid, and I loved Pele, right? I didn't know how much Pele made. I didn't know this. I didn't know that. I knew that he came to America because he was old and he wanted to spread the joys of soccer. And I remember wearing number 10 as a kid because I loved Pele. I never knew how much Pele made, ever, ever. I never knew how he got to America. I just knew he was in America and he was awesome. He was a great soccer player. And now everything is so... I'm suing you, I'm cut, they're traded, and I remember being a kid and I'm watching the Indians, and the Indians would trade players for draft picks. You remember when they would do that?
Oh, yeah.
And
It used to drive me nuts.
And you'd be like, I've never heard of that draft pick, I've never heard of that AA player, and I've never heard of that AAA player, right? And they're like, oh, no, they're going to turn into great players. So I vaguely remember with the Indians, good players being traded for prospects, right? But nowadays, people are traded because one guy makes too much and they don't fit under the cap. And it's about money matters, but not about players for prospects. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm like, you know what? The money squeezes the joy out of it. How many times have I said that? Like 3 times now. I keep circling around. I feel like I'm spinning my wheels.
Well, I mean, it used to be like, one of the reasons you would watch sports is so you wouldn't think about stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what's the point in watching sports? You might as well just watch, like, I don't know, IBM or Apple.
You can watch the business news. You can read the money section. Right.
It's like, you want to watch things like that to get a break from stuff,
Yeah.
And you don't.
And
it's almost like it's worse than the real world.
Yeah.
And
that's why I don't want to hear the CEO of my last company, talking about, well, you know what, I got to go to Aspen this weekend and I got to do a conference, and it's like, I remember that guy complaining about how hard it was to be in different cities. It's like, really? Do you know how much in stock you have? You have $12 million in stock as a CEO of, right? And you're like, oh. And one of the funniest things I ever saw at the last company is they downsized, right? And they downsized from the corporate office all the way down to drivers, right? And then he put out an email and he sent it out to the whole company, right? And he said, today was a really hard day. We had to let people go because we're outsourcing some of our processes overseas. And again, they don't talk in real world terms. They talk about processes and downsizing, right? But he was saying how hard it was because good people got let go. Who let those good people go? Him! And then he gets on and he's complaining. He's like, oh, these poor people, they don't have... You downsized them! You downsized them, and then you complained that you had to downsize them.
Yeah.
Well, why did you have to downsize them? Well, he doesn't want to tell
I
you.
didn't let them go. We let them go.
Yeah, we had to let them go, or else our stock prices wouldn't have...
That's like a literary trick or whatever.
Right.
Just like Bill O'Reilly, when he does his monologue, he is talking points.
Yeah.
That's what... In other words, I'm not saying that talking points.
Yeah,
well, you're talking points.
Your talking points.
But it makes it sound like it's somebody else.
Right. So now sports is almost like your corporation. Now, if you don't work for a corporation, that's great. But it's like you said, it's like, I don't want to talk about IBM. IBM had to shift 1,000 jobs from, New York to Beijing because it would save them too, and it would drive the stock prices. I'm like, well, that's almost like sports nowadays. And then, like I said, they talk to you in these terms that you're like, well, wait a second. You're the one who did that. Well, I didn't want to do it. It was hard. It was hard to let Betty go after 28 years. But you let her go. Yeah, but let's not dwell on that. Same thing in sports. And again, if let's say Colin Kaepernick was making...
It is, I mean, it's enough to make you crazy.
Yeah. Let's say that Colin Kaepernick was making 50 grand, right? Just hypothetically. Colin Kaepernick was making 50 grand. I would be sitting here going, that sucks. I made 50 grand. You made 50 grand. We know how Colin Kaepernick feels. You see what I'm getting at? We know how hard it is to stick your neck out and saying how you feel for 50 grand and then you lose your job. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Colin Kaepernick throughout his career made $40 million.
That's the total.
Total, and his contract was for just under $100 million. So his angle was,
do you think that
I got cut before I made my $100 million.
Do you think that Colin Kaepernick has invested his money that he made? I'm just picturing where Colin Kaepernick is going to end up. Like
Colin Kaepernick, I'm sure he has some of that money. Okay, I don't think he wasted all of it.
I'm just picturing him like working like at a place like where we would work.
No. What's gonna happen?
Wouldn't that be funny though?
No. Well, yeah, it would be funny, but that ain't gonna happen. What's gonna happen to Colin Kaepernick is now 100 million people know what his name is, right? Yeah. So he's gonna get a job at like the NAACP, making $1 million a year as their spokesperson, or the Social Justice Institute, or he'll run for office. You see what I'm getting at? He has now branded himself as a social justice warrior. Now, social justice warriors that you see in downtown Cleveland working and making $22,000 a year, I feel bad for them, and they live the cause. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. The Colin Kaepernicks of the world, he just branded himself as a social justice warrior. Because at the end of the day, it's about branding yourself as a corporation. And the sports is a no-fun corporation, just like, again, we pick on IBM, but for all I know, IBM's a great company. Okay? A company that's been taking a lot of hits lately is Amazon, right? Amazon said that they track everything you do. They're the ones who want to put on the work bracelets to make sure you're working the whole time. Mm. And they want to track all your time. And, you work at a delivery company, right? And they said some Amazon drivers have to make 200 stops in a day. And they start at 6 in the morning. They're done at 8 at night. They're not allowed to stop. They pee in cups, right? And they bring energy bars from home. You see what I'm saying? Because they're not unionized and they're basically beaten into the ground. Okay, but they're like, well, it's an Amazon job. We don't want to lose this. We're at the forefront. You see what I'm getting at? And so you feel bad for those people because you're like, well, 200 stops in a day is a lot.
Yeah.
Ted's just imagining 200 stops in a day with his boss right now. I could do 200 stops.
Yeah, I mean, is that because I remember you showed me something on the internet about an Amazon driver several months ago, and that was in what, Great Britain?
In Great Britain, yeah.
Now, is the same stuff going on here too?
Supposedly, it's not going on to that extent, but supposedly they want to unionize because all the people at and again, this is broad generalizations, Jeff Bezos says, I run a tight ship, but everybody's happy, which you don't believe for a second. The workers say we want to unionize because we're afraid.
Everybody who counts is happy.
Yeah, everybody who counts is happy. We're
not counting malcontents.
We don't talk to them. But the people at Amazon say they know that Amazon's growing and it's a good job compared to other jobs. They're not digging ditches, blah, 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 yakety schmackety. And so they don't want to complain because they don't want to lose their good job. You see what I'm getting at? Mm-hmm. So if they complain, they are not losing $7 million a year. They're losing, whatever we make. And again, I have a different price structure because I am now in a different sector of life, and that's not what you make. I'm using a round number. You see what I'm saying? So the whole thing is is that nowadays everybody is afraid to talk, and the millionaires who do come out and talk, they're not losing anything. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so the people in the NFL who say that they're going to keep kneeling, they're not being genuine. Okay? Now, do they believe in social? I believe that they believe in social crusades. Okay? Some of them are good people and good. I'm not saying everything across. What I'm saying is, and let me be clear, they are not social justice warriors like people who only make 22 to 50 grand a year. That's all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Am I clear? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Now, after talking, do you want to go out and watch soccer?
No, but I didn't want to before.
Do you want? And we're gonna run through here because we're probably gonna tie this up in sports. We'll aim for about an hour. Do you want to watch baseball anymore? And I'm asking you honestly. Do you want to watch baseball? When you are bored, do you sit down and watch Indians games?
No, I don't. But not for any like particular reason. I just lost interest. You know,
When you were 25,
not
30,
because of anything they did, or
but when you were 25, 30 years old, did you watch baseball? If you had downtime.
Oh yeah,
All right.
yeah, I did.
When you were young, did you watch hockey?
No,
No. So you don't watch hockey now?
no.
So when you were young, in your 20s, you watched baseball and football?
Yeah, and in my 20s, probably not much basketball. But
Right. So you probably
baseball
watch
and
more
football.
basketball now because of LeBron.
Right.
Right. But now that he's gone, how much are you watching?
Probably very little. I'll probably look to just see like how you can't like turn away from like an accident
Yeah.
or whatever. That's what it'll be like. I'll just have to see how bad they are.
Now that I'm older, I'm going to pull the Joey G on you. Okay? I would rather watch the Avon single A baseball than go down and see the Indians. Because I'm like, you know what a hassle it is to get downtown. I don't have the cable station to see the Indians.
I know I've asked you this before, but where is the single A team? Where are they out of?
They're out of Avon, Ohio, and they're on 90 as you're going to Lorraine.
Okay, that's a single A. So the
Yeah.
double A is in Akron?
Double A's in Akron.
Okay.
Triple A is in Columbus.
Okay. So double A is Akron because
Double A is
I
Akron.
drive by there.
Yeah, you drive by. That's a nice place. I've been there before.
That is very cool, like where it's at.
Yeah. And I'm like, I would just rather watch, because I like baseball. You know what I mean? I'm going to watch the guys making $500 a month, right? And be entertained by them. And I like pro baseball, but I'm just not paying, right? I'm an old man. Football, I like watching it on my TV because I like football. But then they go to halftime, and they're like, you don't understand, blah, 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 is holding out. And I'm like, click, right? And in soccer, I like soccer, but they're like, blah, blah, blah is going to have a new record transfer fee. And I'm like, oh. And I know about it, but I feel like I am sick of it.
The single A team is in Avon?
Avon, yeah.
Wow, that might be something we have to check out.
If you want to go see the single A team, we will go. We will go because the season, we'll go over Labor Day. We'll talk about it off air. Okay?
Yeah, because it would be interesting because I've never seen a minor league game.
Oh, okay.
It would be very interesting to see like the talent level at single A.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll talk. We'll take a Beacon of Speech field trip.
Mm-hmm.
So, now, money ruins everything. Now, I don't want to keep talking about this, so we'll talk about it in a different genre. Okay? Back in 1981, who's your favorite band, Ted Coley?
You sounded like Captain Kirk.
Who's your favorite band in 1981?
In 1981,
Flashback, 1981. Who's your favorite band?
The Beatles.
Okay, second favorite band.
Second favorite band in 1981?
Yeah.
Oh, God. Oh boy, probably. I
Led
probably.
Zeppelin? Eagles?
I'll say the Eagles.
Where would Pink Floyd be if you had to rate from 1 to 10? You don't have to think hard, like 1, 10, 100.
Maybe 10.
Okay. Last week, I went to go see the band called Wish You Were Here, cover band of Pink Floyd. It was excellent. Okay? The only complaint I had was Wish You Were Here, and it's not even a real complaint. It's very minor. When Pink Floyd broke up, did you get the impression that they were having fun?
No.
When Pink Floyd recorded Dark Side of the Moon, did you get the impression that those guys were having fun?
I guess.
No. Okay? I got the impression once they started to get bigger and bigger and bigger, Roger Waters thought he was the band. Again, what's the conflict as old as time? Lead singer thinks he's more talented than the rhythm section. Rhythm section thinks they're more responsible for the music, right? Roger Waters thought he was Pink Floyd. Would you say that's fair?
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of the band was like, no, we're a team. All for one, one for all, right? Tale as old as time.
Mm-hmm.
When I saw Wish You Were Here, those guys, all of them, from the lead singer to the saxophonist to the girls to the drummer, and they had 9 people on stage at the encore, right? They were all happy. They were all like, we are happy to be playing Pink Floyd songs. I've never seen... The guitars were spot on, the drums were spot on, the sax was spot on. I mean, that show was great. Now, did you ever see Pink Floyd live?
No.
Okay. If you get a chance, we need to take, because Avon reminded me and you got to take a field trip to see Wish You Were Here. So you can see it. They were awesome. They even had a giant inflatable pig pushed out in front of the stage. Right? The inflatable pig, you're like, whoa, that's the inflatable pig. Right? And so right now, David Gilmour's still alive. He doesn't want to talk about Pink Floyd, right? Roger Waters is alive. He tours under the name Roger Waters, but he plays, 3/4 Pink Floyd songs? Mason's dead. Sid Barrett's long gone, right? I can't remember the other.
Right.
Yeah, he's alive, but he's just sitting there counting money, right? So they have no interest in ever playing. Pink Floyd's never coming back and touring, right? Would you want to see Wish You Were Here, even though they're not really Pink Floyd?
Yeah, I guess.
Because it is about the music, and they don't... How much was the Eagles tickets when me and you were bitching about it?
Oh, God. I mean, what was it? Starts at $100?
They start at $100. I believe Wish You Were Here... We were like in the 3rd row. I think it was $20.
Jeez, oh man.
Yeah. Would you pay $20?
You were in the 3rd row?
Yeah. Would you pay $20 to see a band perform Pink Floyd music spot on?
Yeah, that's.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So now you're going back to money, the law of supply and demand. You don't necessarily love Pink Floyd because you know that David Gilmour, had that lawsuit against, I'm sorry, not David Gilmour. Roger Waters had this lawsuit for David Gilmour and said, you can't use the name Pink Floyd. And David Gilmour said, screw you, we'll sue you. You remember all that, right? Yeah. And at the end of the day, you're like, I don't care. I want to hear somebody perform Pink Floyd music well. You see what I'm getting at? And so now, as a consumer, you're like, I will pay $20 to see this cover band if Fred tells me that they... You see where I'm going with it? Professional sports is going to eat itself. Because if we wanted to see the Browns, it would be, $100, $200 a ticket? Cheapest ticket, $70. Is it something like that?
I couldn't even tell you.
So, but you can go see in our county the Lake Erie Nightmares, for $8, and they're a semi-pro team out of Elyria, I believe it is. So I'm like, at my age, I just go see the Lake Erie Nightmares because I don't have $100 sitting around for Browns guys, And then I'm going to be mad because Josh Gordon would rather do drugs than play football. Right? And how many times I complained about that? I'm making a speech about 100. He's back today, by the way. He said he's ready to play football.
Really?
Yeah, today. Today, as we speak, hours before we went on, Josh Gordon is ready to play football.
What do you think of that?
Oh, Dad, don't get me started! You'll piss me off! Do you really want to know what I think?
Yeah. Do you think this is gonna last? That it's
Ted Coley,
everything's behind him?
I am going to ask you a very personal question, and you might have to stop the tape. Okay? Do you have a baby's mama somewhere in Cuyahoga County?
Do I?
Do you? Do you have a secret family
No.
that you do not tell me about?
No.
Do you have 2 secret families
If it
that
was
you did
secret,
not tell me
I
about?
wouldn't tell you about it.
Do you have 2 secret families?
No.
Do you have 2 secret families in Cleveland and a possible another secret family outside of Cleveland?
No.
Josh Gordon, who's had trouble with drugs and alcohol, and he has anxiety because that's why he does drugs, because of social anxiety, which, do you know?
That's what it is?
That's what he says.
Social anxiety.
Yeah, because he has anxiety. He has anxiety, so that's why he does a mountain of drugs. Okay? Do you know anybody else with anxiety?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. That's why, so Josh Gordon says he has anxiety. That's why he did a mountain of drugs. He went back to rehab because he felt himself relapsing. Right? He's relapsing.
Now, isn't that the same thing that Ricky Williams had?
Yeah, that's what Ricky Williams said. Yeah, that's why he wanted to do pot. Don't get me started on Ricky Williams either. So Josh Gordon went to rehab, and he said, I have anxiety, and I want to go to rehab before I fall back into drugs and alcohol. And everybody's like, oh, well, good for Josh Gordon. He's managing his disease. Jerks like Fred said, cut him! Get rid of Josh! For God's sake, we are so sick of Josh Gordon. Cut him! Right? Josh Gordon, it came out in the news this week. I don't know if you saw the report or not. Part of the reason he had anxiety is because he had a court case because he did not want to pay child support to his baby's mamas.
Yeah.
Okay? So he was having anxiety because he was going to court for all the babies that he was leaving around Cleveland.
Well, that would make anybody anxious.
So if he went to rehab, he did not have to pay child support because he wasn't making any money.
Man.
Yeah.
I can't even follow things anymore.
Which goes back to, I am at a point where I'm like, I think I will follow the Lake Erie or the Lake County Nightmares instead of the Browns, because this got reported, and of course it got reported. It didn't even get reported by like the Browns reporter, Tony Grossi or Mary Kay Cabot or Jim Donovan. It got reported by a court reporter for Channel 3, their equivalent of Tom Meyer, and he's flipping through court cases, right? He's flipping through court cases, Josh Gordon, is this the same? He went to rehab like the day before he was supposed to get a child support payment? Let me see if this is the same Josh Gordon as on the Browns. Lo and behold, it was. You see what I'm saying? Now, Josh Gordon didn't tell any of the Browns reporters. He's like, I just want to get healthy for my mental health. And then you find out that the court reporter, again, all he did was good journalism. He's flopping through court documents, flip. This name looks familiar. Hey, Joe, you ever hear? Is this the same Josh Gordon as the Brown? You see what I'm getting at? And so you find out that Josh Gordon lied again. Because when Josh Gordon failed his drug tests, he used to say, I was around bad people and I inhaled secondhand smoke. And because of HIPAA, the NFL couldn't say he was lying. And then when Josh Gordon went on the I Lied tour, he goes, oh no, I did every drug and I did a mountain of every drug. And they said, but you said you did, oh yeah, I lied. So he lied about why he went to rehab. Well, some people are like, well, if I was going to have to pay child, I'm like, how many people have the potential to make millions of dollars and they lie about it so they don't have to pay child support? You see what I'm getting at? Now, I'm going to.
So he would rather make nothing and not have to pay child support than make millions of dollars and have to pay some of that in child support.
Right.
Once again, cutting off your nose to spite your face.
Right. And why do I know this story? Because I follow the Browns and it pops back up. I'm like, why do I know this?
So he's, in a way, he's like Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah. Yes. And that's why it's so frustrating to me. Now, one part of me almost feels bad for Josh Gordon because he's on his rookie contract, so he only makes $1 million a year. And you're like, so he has had to squeeze that $1 million across 5 years, which is $200,000 a year, which is almost Fred and Ted, where you're like, damn, I feel bad for Josh Gordon because he only makes double of what we make. You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah, double of what we make combined.
But again, and I tell my wife this all the time, and it pisses her off to no end. You know, she'll see like a story on the Daily Mail about a guy who he said he was in sales and then he had 2 families, right? You've seen those stories, right?
Yeah.
And my wife would be like, "Do you have 2 families?" I'm like, "God damn, do you know how much energy that takes?" I'm like, "I can never have 2 families because I could not." And she's like, "Oh, so you would want 2 families?" I'm like, "I didn't say that. I just said I don't have the energy for it or the money for it."
So you're saying even if you wanted
to. Even if I wanted to. And she goes, "So you've thought about it?" I'm like, "No, I haven't thought about it. I read these stories and I'm in disbelief because I'm like, how?" And it's the same thing with Josh Gordon. Josh Gordon's got a kid who's like, 2 and 1. And I'm like, how in the world can you? Well, when you are ripped and you look like Adonis, you are a walking statue. I can understand where, I am not Adonis. I got big, I got the gut and, gray hair and the crooked teeth and all that other fun stuff. And, part of it is jealousy. I'm like, I cannot go like street to street, town to town and be like, hey, let's go. And the girls are like, yay, it's Fred. We've been waiting but Fred from Beacon of Speech, let's go. You know what I mean? Even if we're going to go back to a company, let's say the company that owns Cleveland.com. They want to buy Beacon of Speech for $100,000 a year and then pay us $100,000 a year, right? And then we're on Beacon of Speech and I'm screaming, football, soccer, Trump, soccer, football. And you're laying back and you're like, oh yeah, Fred, you have to think about the real world. And now, when that happens, okay, when we walk out the door, are there going to be women walking out, sitting outside a Beacon of Speech saying, Fred and Ted, here we are, come take us? No, that ain't happening, okay? That's why I'm like, again, it goes back to a world that I don't understand, okay? Because that is never going to happen. Even when I was the best looking I ever was in my whole life. One of the best looking I ever was probably maybe 2 or 3 months before my accident in 1992. Okay? And because my teeth weren't all effed up. Right? And I was skinny and I was playing soccer. You know what I'm saying? There were no girls hanging out at the indoor soccer courts going, wow, look at these athletes. Because we were making no money playing indoor soccer. You know what I mean? And I remember some of my teammates, I was like one of the ugly guys. There were guys on that soccer team who were not, they were really good looking, right? But they didn't make any money, right? There were very few indoor soccer groupies, okay? And Ted's laughing. He's imagining you're walking out of the Force Fitness Institute. You know what I mean? That just wasn't happening. So not only Josh Gordon am I in disbelief about the money, but about leaving children in towns across the city.
Across the fruited plain.
And again, he lied about it. Why did you go to rehab? Oh, well, I was having anxiety. Why were you having anxiety? That's my business, right? And then you see the court cases, and you're like, you know what, that guy's
Well, the thing that I don't understand is that he went into rehab so that he wouldn't have to pay child support.
Right.
So now that he's out, what are they like? Okay, we're not going to go after you now.
What happens is because he was in rehab, it's a push. Okay, so his hearing got pushed until after he starts playing. Now his next contract, because he was in rehab, has to be pushed for another year before he can sign the big money contract. So his child support payments still stay under the old contract, where if he didn't go to rehab, they could start assessing how much his new contract would be. You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah, I guess.
And so now they can't get him for more money. If anything, they have to downgrade his child support payments. And again, you're like, oh, you're shaking your head, and I agree 100%. You're like, why are we talking about this? Josh Gordon, that's what I want you to do. I want you to line up on the goddamn field. I want you to run a post pattern. I want you to beat the safety, and then I want you to beat the corner. And I want you to score a goddamn touchdown, right? And you're like, Fred, it's not like that in life. And no, that's what I want. I just want you to go out, run the post pattern, and catch the football. And then I want you to spike it, and then I want you to do things like Billy White Shoes Johnson, right? Just play football. I don't want to know anything about all that, right? And then you find out some horrible story.
It's almost like they're trying to do whatever they can to drive us away from them.
Yeah, yeah. And then and again, it's not just the players. It's a two-way street, right? It's the league lies, the players. I'm like, I just want to know about football.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the NFL partly did it to themselves because they want the NFL to be a 365-day year league. We want to talk about, there's a network talking about football all year long. When we were kids, there was no NFL network. You watched the game 16 times a year or on Monday night.
Yeah. The only thing I remember is maybe Jimmy the Greek. You know, remember Jimmy the Greek?
Yeah.
I mean, there was a pregame show.
Yeah.
You know, and he would make predictions on what was going to happen.
And I
but that was the extent of it. You know.
Yeah. There was no 24-hour-a-day football, and when you have 24-hour-a-day network, you have to talk about all that. Okay. And part of the reason, and I joke around about indoor soccer, but indoor soccer, the salary cap is $50,000. Okay. And again, I keep throwing around $50,000, right? So if you're making $50,000, but the salary cap for the whole team is $50,000, how much money are you making playing indoor soccer? You know, that's a whole team full of guys who are working and then playing indoor soccer part-time.
Now, wait a minute. The indoor soccer league, the salary cap is $50,000 for the whole team?
Yeah, it's like $50,000 to $100,000 per team.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And they got a lot of players from Mexico who are like, oh, wow, that's decent money.
Wait a minute.
Mexico.
Was it like that when... Who was it?
No. No, it was higher. When the Force played...
Yeah.
When the Force played, that was something else. I remember in the 90s...
And you told me roughly what were those guys making?
They were making $50,000 to $100,000. So those guys, again, say you... Ted Coley, just hypothetically say you make $50,000 because it's a nice round number. You would work, and then you would go to the Coliseum and watch indoor soccer. And you're like, hey, look, there's my favorite player, Keith Marinara, right? Or Hector Marinara. I said the wrong name. I was thinking Keith Furphy, Hector Marinara, Otto Orff, all those guys, right? Kai Hoskovy. There was a good chance that you made the same amount of money as that guy who was playing on the court. And even the highest paid player like Zorn Karic, right? He probably wasn't even making six figures. He was probably making a little bit more money than you. And I remember in my neighborhood in Brunswick, indoor soccer players lived in my neighborhood, right? Not on my street, but in the same neighborhood complex. I'd be like, oh, that's where Benny Dargo lives. He lives 8 streets down. You see what I'm getting at? And you could be like, oh, well, you could relate to those players. And if Benny Dargo had problems, you only knew because you talked to him. You know what I mean? Oh, how you doing? Oh, my kid quit soccer, right?
Yeah.
You see what I'm getting at? And so you did not read about their problems on the national news. There was no indoor soccer network running 300. Could you imagine the indoor soccer network? What are they talking about every day? You see what I'm getting at? So even Josh Gordon controversies are magnified because you have to talk about something. And they're like, oh, no, don't watch baseball, talk about contracts. You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah, I mean, it's becoming very difficult to relate to multimillionaires
Right.
who invent their problems.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
And when players say, you got to understand, the owners are a-holes, they're billionaires. And you're like, yeah, I know. A bunch of billionaire owners and a bunch of a-hole players. You know what I mean? The days of the Joe Thomas, who are like playing through injuries and played 10,000 snaps, you know, that's bygone era. You know, people always said that Joe Thomas was folksy and stuff. And it's like, well, he just wanted to play football.
Yeah.
And then he's like, you know what? I can't play football anymore. I'm worried about getting banged in the head. You know, I made $100 million playing football. I'm done. Right? And then you're like, well, I can't relate to Joe Thomas making $100 million, but I can relate to him saying I want to get kicked in the head. Ted Coley, you want to get kicked in the head?
No.
But for $100 million, you'd be like, would I play a sport I love?
I have enough problems without being kicked in the head.
I got kicked in the head in indoor soccer. But that's what I'm getting at. So that's why when I keep talking about sports problems, part of me is like, I cannot relate.
Well, I know that's not you, Colin.
Ted, here's the phone. We're going to cut it off. I'm sorry to spin in circles. I feel like I said the same thing 8 times over and over. I apologize for being unfocused. Ted Coley, I thank you for your time and patience. One day, do you think Beacon of Speech is going to make money?
Yes.
Yay!